Okay, all right, okay. 3 little black boxes. Actually 4, because 2 of these are sold together. Hello, I'm Zeospantera, your host of Z Reviews. And, yeah, so, Earman. You might remember Earman from the Earman Sparrow, the little tiny one, or the Calabri, which is the bigger one that was like USB off your phone, and I really liked that. I took it to SoCal, like to test headphones with. This is what they've been working on for a desk setup. There is this, which is the first thing that came out, which is the amp. I swear to God, they call it the champ. It's the CH-amp, and it's their headphone amplifier, and it has to come with this massive power supply. But the other things they came out with are the Tradutto, which is their DAC, and the Straccato, which is their streaming box. I'm trying to say that as Italian, as my grandma would be proud up in heaven. I love you, Grandma! And they're not cheap. This here is $1,500. So you get 4 watts per channel balanced output, dedicated separate power supply. And then, should you buy the Staccato or the Tradutto, you could come with either their own little power supplies, or this unit comes with the extra power bricks, the extra power cable, so you could run all the outputs. So the headphone amp, and then 2, and then a 3rd accessory, which doesn't even exist yet. And I asked them about that, and they said, like, yeah, there might be some other thing in the future, so we're just going to have it there in case. So I guess I'll focus. Hold on, I'm going to move you over for a second. I'm going to move you over for a second. And the wallpaper is stacked, available in the Horde below. And don't forget to check out my Patreon. For $10 a month, you get to ask me any questions directly in private chat. I got to say that earlier in the videos, because no one really realizes that that's, if you want to ask me questions, that's where to do it. So this thing, designed to go next to or on top of or behind whatever this thing is, their amplifier. And it's very, very square. The bottom is galvanized steel, and then the rest of it is all aluminum, and it's really fucking nice. A lot of room for waifus. In fact, I spent a good deal of time finding 4 waifus from the same show. That took a bit. Let me tell you, it took a bit, and I actually found 5, and I picked those 4. Currently running the Zens up on them through a 4.4 millimeter to 2.5 converter, because of course IMs I love just are dumb with their wire connections. Let's plug in this, which I haven't done yet, but I'm trying to find a headphone that needs the high gain, because so far nothing is needed to leave low gain. And there's a couple quirks as far as like how this functions, even though it's literally just headphone amplifier. You've all seen them before. I've seen them before. It's good to go. We're going to have to stack it though, because this is where the DAC input. I want to thank DD Hi-Fi for sending me this absolutely absurd 4.4 to 4.4 cable, because this unit, oh God, don't crush it. Here's the back of it. Here's your power plug, which if I unplug this is a 4-pin. That's why it's a 2 by 12 volt, 1 amp. It's not a lot of power supply, but it's very clean. You have this side, which is pre-outs, which is another 4.4, which I currently have on a Pentacon connector from Woo Audio, because that goes to XLR, and I was sending it out to the topping LA90 so I could test the DAC and then preing out this into that. It's a whole thing. So you get your pre-outs, which are RCA or balanced, and then you get your inputs, which are 2 sets of RCAs and a balanced input. Unfortunately, that balanced input isn't full-size XLR, but it's a small unit, so you have to use a 4.4. I will link a 4.4 to XLR female cable in the description, because if you wanted to plug just this into like a DAC, like this wire is doing, you'd have to buy that special cable. Does not come with. DD Hi-Fi sent me this cable, which is fucking stellar looking, by the way. And I'm going to use a Tradutto, which is the DAC, to feed it. So I have to go like this. We're going to start making the stacks. That wallpaper will make sense soon. And we're going to plug this into here. And by the way, this is my favorite way to do a balance between 2 devices. There's no need on a desk for consumer level shit to be XLR. It just doesn't need to be there. And I'm kind of okay with like the 1/4 inch TRS, and you have like the 1/4 inch to 1/4 inch, and that's kind of fine. But then you still need 2 wires. This is all in 1 wire. Now you could argue whether they're sharing a ground because they're not truly balanced, but the only reason to do actual XLR stuff is to go like 40 feet through where interference might fuck with you. This is fine. This is fine. Then we just have that one little jumper wire. So every time, I guess we should look at the front of it before I talk about everything else. 1/4 inch output, 4.4 output, little tiny screen. You have this window here, which is for the remote control, which, hello, adorable, USB rechargeable, all aluminum remote control. Hey, shit. I talk about shit a lot, because shit, I want shit to be better than it is, and it ain't. And this would be a perfect example. It's got an openable back, so you could probably even change the battery out if you needed to. But it's a little USB-C rechargeable fucking infrared blasting, just volume up and down. This actually might be a little bit too small. Like, my thumb covers 8 buttons. But that's fine. Look, at a little green light, when you're charging it, it's red. I think I charged it like 2 months ago once. Let's mute that for a second. So that's your infrared receiver. You have some actually really interesting buttons because I think they're mounted directly to the board. They look like board buttons, but they're flush, so you don't feel them. You just have to push your finger down, and you get the choice between L1, L2, or balanced input. That's it. And then you have your gain, low or high. And then look at that. There's a fucking VU meter. And on high gain, if we're assuming our source is 0, 21 out of 30. Put that on USB. So, yes, I like a simple little lamp. The power button is you hold the knob in. If you press it once, it just mutes it. You press again, it unmutes it. And it brings up, so I should show you that too. Here, ready, mute, ready, unmute. Oh, in case you fucked up. I love a slow unmute. And at any point, you can interrupt that. If it's going up and it's like 0 through 21, and it's like, oh God, you turn that knob and it stops there. So I love that. This is a very clean amplifier. I mean, the problem with it is it's $1,500 in a world where the A90D exists and the LA90 exists and all the other amplifiers that I've ever reviewed ever exist and are relatively cheaper than this. I think you want this because it's the smallest and because it has your little remote control. And the only other thing I would add to it is when you unplug this, that's when it switches to the pre-out. So you have to unplug it. There's no button to do that. And I'm pre-outing now to this and this setup, and it goes to 0 every time. So music is not playing because I'm not on that. With the pre-out, another thing I'm saying things I don't like, but oh God, I can't because that's that. I'm saying things I don't like, and it's not like, oh, I don't like anything about this. But the VU meters are fantastic. I've been begging companies put some sort of VU meter on the front of it. Like Shelly Labs puts LEDs, and it's like, well, that LED isn't telling me anything except for it's a color. And like anything with any DAC with a goddamn display is a waste if it's not bouncing a needle or showing me levels. Like, do something. So this is actually doing something. Unfortunately, it's not showing you the input gain. It's showing you the output gain. So if you turn the volume down, for most headphones and IEMs, so the gauges barely move. And if you're using it on a pre-out, I found that 24 out of 30, and I'm using the balanced output of this into these. Cats ripping up a box. 24 out of 30 gets it to peak at 0. So it doesn't say anything about that in the book. It just, that's the way it works. So if I put this back on this, because I have 2 inputs. Toslink is the computer, and the coaxial digital is the staccato. I found like, if that was an Italian food product, I would know it by heart. but I got to keep reading it. And luckily, it's like this set was made for reviewers who have short memories, because it's like, what are you called again? Staccato. I'll put the Rias Grammar on her and it'll be fine. I'll be Rias. So, as a preamping amp, because it's not a DAC, I don't have a box here anymore to put my rag in. So I can't throw it on the floor. Let's finish up with the amp, because we got to talk about the other two real quick. Jump to the time codes, by the way, and all that other jazz. As an amplifier, I think the amp has a place in a lot of people's hearts. I personally like Earman. They do something with sound, certainly on their smaller stuff, that if you've ever heard one of their little products, including the little baby tiny sparrow, you're like, wow, why does my stuff sound so good on this? And I noticed it hard when I was going from testing the output of this on these. And these, if you don't know, are the Peacocks, the Sendy Peacocks. And I've always said that, you know, the amp doesn't really make a difference. They just sound great on everything. But going from the Topping LA90, which is like my preferred powerhouse amplifier, which these don't need a lot of power, but I was going from that to this, I preferred it on this. And I don't know why, but I did. And then I plugged in the IMs, the very sensitive little ups, the Zen's ups. And I was like, oh my fucking God, I can't believe how good these are. And I don't know if I was hearing how good the amplifier was or how good those IMs were, but I literally just sat here for 45 minutes. Just listening. I'm like, I gotta start this review. 2, 3, 5 more songs. Then I had to go up and take a leak because I was sitting here for too long. So I think I give the amp a full fucking Zeos recommendation for actually sounding good. The only like slight little concerns I have is every time you unplug something, whether it's to put a new headphone in or you want to put the preamp on, everything drops to 0. It's like a paranoia effect. So right now the preamp is enabled and it's at 24 and I just have the music paused. Where the fuck did my remote go? Don't do that to me. Don't. So if I unplug it from here and I got to plug it into here, it's going to go from 24 to 0. And if you heard, because you should have heard it, for a split second before the 4.4 landed, whatever the volume was set to on it played out of there, and then it dropped to 0. So that's I don't think they can make it fall any faster. That's going to be up to you to lower things. Because if I come out, put up the volume, this is again for the preamp, and I put it in, listen, that happens. So be fucking careful. Don't assume it's going to be like, I unplugged it, I plugged it back in. Because it will just, whatever the volume was set to last is going to happen, and then it's going to drop to 0, which is like useless in the point of lowering the volume to 0 in the first place. The remote control that the amp comes with has 10 buttons, 6 on top, which are for the amp, and then 4 in the bottom, which are actually for the Tradutto, which is the DAC, which we're going to talk about in a second. Which actually, let's just roll this over and talk about the Tradutto. In fact, let's unplug that and talk about the Tradutto. I just love saying the names. The rear has your power input, which I am, of course, coming from the Earman PSU3. That doesn't have a fancy name. These all have like amp and the Tradutto and PSU3. They should have named that too. But here's your power input. Here's your Bluetooth antenna. It does have Bluetooth, USB in, optical in, coaxial in. You have RCA lineouts, and you have, again, your balance lineout on this is also 4.4. So you're going to need... I'm okay with this for anyone who's going to be able to afford all these equipment, which this is $1,500 with the power supply. And the Tradutto is... one of these is 800, one of them is 1,000. The Tradutto is 800. So 800 for a good DAC, that's fine. It should possibly for that cost come with a 4.4 to some sort of regular XLR adapter. You can find those on Amazon pretty cheap, under 50 bucks. But this thing is heavy. That's another thing that I'm not stating hard enough. These things feel their cost. They still got the galvanized steel bottom, which might throw some people off. And oh my God, the circuit board is green. This is the future. Everything should be black with gold contacts. And actually, it does have gold contacts. The whole board is gold. They're doing it, all right? They're trying real hard to make that value, that $800 fucking price tag, make sense. So you got your little rubber feet, same as on those, which are actually standoffs and then rubber feet. The machining on the outside is just probably, I don't know what it is, but like if I touch like a topping product or an SMSL product, it's like, oh, that's really nice. The Singer product, you touch this, it's like, that just feels better. Like the way they did the edges. The edges are sharper yet more well done. You could feel it's a quality product. Back to the back. So there's your balance. You got thing, and there's a little QR code. Don't know why. No other switches, changes, nothing else. The front, you get your infrared remote. So the remote for the amp has ability to control the Tradutto. But the Tradutto, in case you buy it on its own, comes with another remote. Again, USB rechargeable, says Earman on the bottom, inscribed in there, only 4 buttons. And this is where this thing starts to lose value in my mind, because you can change your input, and there are only 4 inputs. You go to the left, and it's USB, Toslink, coaxial, and Bluetooth. And then you have power, to hold it maybe, standby, and then you have Bluetooth button for pairing. Earman logo when you turn it on. Then it says terms of service. There's no volume control on this. And I think what they want you to do is to use this. Like, this is just like, oh, we made this. This is what they wanted to sell you. The amplifier section, the headphone amp, the amp. I think they want you to have this. And then if you want the matching DAC to make the stacks stack up beautifully, and we'll get to the stack at the end of this review. There'll be a stack, trust me. Then you'd buy the Tradutto. And then you'd use this to preamp out to speakers. You wouldn't just buy the DAC on its own and preamp out to speakers. And why did you include the remote? So the fact that it doesn't have adjustable volume is kind of a sad bear. Because what the fuck are you actually going to do with this remote if you're 10 feet away from it and you're just like, I want to hear the Toslink now, and I want to hear the coaxial now? I mean, that's a thing. You could legitimately need that thing, and then I guess you could have a separate preamp, which is what this would be. This would be a separate remote control preamp for actual volume, or you have like a higher end one of these Axiom Luminous audios that does like wireless, like an actual remote. It's just weird to leave it off of a DAC that has a screen that has everything else going for it to compete with other things. I mean, you get to like the R2R DACs, something like the Aries 2, and that doesn't have a volume, so why am I not complaining about that? Because that doesn't have a remote. That stands alone. There's no matching thing. That just is supposed to be what it is, and it's done. And they've done an amazing job on this DAC as far as it's sounding as clean and clear as I've ever wanted to hear a DAC sound, but it's lacking in the features for that cost. This is $500. I'd have a little bit more to be like, all right, cool, go for it. At $800, you're getting it to match this. So I guess it makes sense monetarily, but it's like, why? So now we've looked at the power amp, which is, by the way, blue LED, white LEDs for 12 volt, and then there's the specific 12 times 2, which is for the amp. So let's put this down. I should apply a Wi-Fi sticker to that. We're gonna put since this doesn't have an antenna on it, we'll put this down next. Boom. Also, I like to put things that get plugged in and out of on like the lower part of a stack, so that the weight of everything above it can hold it in place. So when you're doing this and that, it doesn't like yank the whole stack off the table. We've talked about the Tradutto, and we can actually put this down and then plug our 4.4 back in. Oh, so satisfying. So now our stack's almost complete. The final piece of the puzzle, and actually this doesn't need to be on top because it doesn't do heat. This is their streamer. And this is $1,000. It's on my Wi-Fi network right now. It has a LAN port. It has a 12 volt. Again, you'd get a little transformer. Toslink output. Coaxial digital output. And then a USB host capability for plugging in an external hard drive or a USB key. Turns out I don't have a fucking USB key with music on it. Just lying around, like you'd figure Zeos would have that. I feel like that was more of a 5 years ago thing, but it should be a now thing. because that would be super fucking useful because there's an app. There's always an app. This is 2023. Do you have a coffee maker? Fucking look for an app for it. I guarantee you got a goddamn app for your coffee maker. Anyway, I'm using coaxial digital out into the Tradutto from the Straccato. Staccato, not strat, there's no R. We had to wire it up to then get onto the network, to get to my phone, to then tell it what the Wi-Fi password and everything was. Then I could disconnect it, plug my laptop back in, and then we're back on it. So there is only one button on the front of this, and that button is power. And you hold it for 2 seconds and it turns off, and you hold it for 2 seconds and it turns on. The end. The stack is complete. I do the thing my mother used to do where she licks her finger and like wipes off the dirt. Like, oh, baby, you know, you gotta go to school. That is a hell of a fucking stack. We're looking at $1,500, $2,500. This is over $3,000. So I could do 3 diamonds, but really the most expensive thing is this, and everything else is under 1,000. Or yeah, three gemstones in the title Zeos. And this is a chonky boy, which you're gonna have to do a little bit of cable management better than I am doing, because I'm just sort of like trying to get this review through my mouth hole. It's got to come out here and then reflects off the desk and then hits the camera. So we won't need this remote. That's just for the DAC, and useless, as we discussed, because no one just needs to switch between inputs most of the time. So here you go. Here's what you've got. I think you're starting to feel who this is designed for. If I put this in the back of my desk, like over here, you fucking wouldn't even notice it. I mean, it's a honker, but look, like next to a headphone, this is like the MacBook Mini. These are like the, you know those, what were they when they first came out? Anything that was like, you used to buy a laptop back in the day and everything was a 15.6 inch. You wanted to spend more money, you got a 17 or a 19 inch laptop. They used to be 19 inch laptops, they were stupid. But then if you wanted like an 11 or 13 inch laptop, the price doubled because it's smaller. Look how small everything is. And the feet are just high enough to keep it off there, and you could unplug it and plug it in without, what am I plugging in? Plug you back in. Put the gain on high again. Raise the volume. Let's change our inputs. Come on. Now we're on dead mouse here. I feel like this is someone's, fuck it, I want a big stack with everything. I should probably talk about what the Staccato's got going on also, because it's, let's go back to the coaxial. This is Spotify. This is the app. Back to the Staccato for a second. We're never already left the Staccato. But, so here's the app. You load it and it says, I can't find a thing. And then you eventually plug in your thing, give it like 60 to 90 seconds to get an IP address. Hey, I found the thing. Go into the thing that shows you the IP address of the wired connection. Then once you've got it showing up here with the volume slider, you click that, you get this menu. And the menu is very strange because it's like, I don't want that, go back. It has like lists of things. It's got playlists and recently played in the library and UPnP and USB and SD. There's no SD, but there's USB hosting. There's Bluetooth for this. I'm not sure if that is the Bluetooth for your phone into that, or if that will also host for Bluetooth, because there are now 2 antennas on this. Spotify TuneIn, Sirius XM, VTuner, Tidal, Quobuzz, Pandora, then Arable. Never heard of Arable. Arable Radio, Arable Podcast, Arable Tidal, Napster, Deezer, Quobuzz, Hi-Res Audio, and Amazon Music. So I don't know what any of those Arable things are. If I click Arable Amazon Music, it tries to makes me log into this app, which is like, I guess I could. The bottom is settings and file system. I thought the file system was the one on my phone. This is the file system on the Staccato that you can dick through. I don't know how you would add things to it, but maybe that's how you get to the actual USB drive, where you hit the USB thing here, and there's nothing in it because there's nothing plugged into it. However, I went to UPnP, and the Shandling EM7 shows up, which is currently running in my bedroom. So I could actually pull FLAC off the SD card of the Shandling EM7, which is the big unit with the flip-up screen, and I could play that FLAC across my network to the Staccato into this setup I'm listening to right now. In fact, I did that earlier. But right now, I'm just going to go back to Spotify. And user is Zeospantera. And here it is. And I've got... Now you can control it either through the app or through actual Spotify. I have Housework, the Housework playlist playing. And it just showed up in the list. This phone, basement light. Apparently my basement lights can play music. I don't know. My house is way too smart. But the Straccato shows up and there it is. This might be the most useful thing in the stack right now for me if I'm going to be messing around, and I can lower the volume on it. So you can't, there's no remote control that comes with this. It's all through the app. But you can have multiple of these if you want to spend $1,000 on like each room. And there are people who do that. I've seen people's setups where they open up a media closet and it's like, yeah, I've got 19 Sonos room DACs in here for every room in my house. So you'd have an alternative to get this. You would just have to deal with the app for it, which is just strange. Like if you hit home and you go back to this, like I was going through some stuff and it was like folders for the settings. Yeah, let's go to settings. And like, there's just pictures of folders. And I'm like, well, there's OAuth and then there's factory resets a folder and power management is a folder, but it's actually just the settings of the factory reset. Display intensity we could adjust for that. Hold on, I haven't seen this yet. Unexpected character. I'm gonna set it to off. Unexpected. Damn. I was hoping I could make that blue LED not be a blue LED. Although the one on the power supply is slightly more annoying, but you know what? Acceptable blue LEDs. That's right, I've set it. Because that one is just the singular solo one. And that one you don't need to look at, and these screens are actually really nice. There's no other power indicators on them. Because the fucking screens are on them. So yeah, no, I think Network Wizard is how I set it up. Audio processing, tone controls. Can I even play with tone controls or equalizers? They're here, but they're grayed out. So I don't know what the actual fuck. There's a clock, 24-hour time. Like, none of this should matter for the thing. But I'm in here. They're in here. They're all in here. You enable the debugging menu. Accounts, OAuth. I wonder what OAuth does for title. Oh, so you do your login codes and things like that. You know, this is a weird unit. I'm glad they finally sent it. This was the last piece they sent me. There was something like TuneIn, Sirius XM. Too bad it doesn't have an FM tuner. I miss those things. But yeah, no, this is So, it's a little girl wearing grottos. Grados! Watch out, what are those? It says Grado Labs Alessandro Music Series. Never heard of. Yeah, I think that Earman put a lot of effort into this and they want to get paid for it. You don't make an amplifier that sounds this good and it's 4 watts a channel, and it's 4 watts a channel, a little tiny chassis, and it doesn't really get that hot. I don't think you could pull that off being like a small company and engineering it as well as they've engineered this and not be able to charge $1,500 for it. That's the thing. They're charging what it's worth. The question is the market going to allow it? Are you going to go out and buy an Earman stack instead of a topping stack or an SMSL stack or a shit stack? Or take the money that this costs and just buy one honking great amplifier and not a DAC, or you have a DAC, or you get that DAC, or you get a Shelly DAC and plug it into this with an adapter. That's another way to go. I like to recommend people do that. I mean, the fact that it pushes like to a satisfactory level. Well, I have to turn this on. I have to turn that on. I have to go back to the staccato. And I think, yeah, my volume control is down. There you go. I think the fact that it's such a... The whole point of this video has just been how clean the fucking amplifier is. But Zeos, if you haven't been to a Z review before, hello, I'm Zeospantera of Z Reviews. And I'll give you very little information about sound. Once something is good or better than expected, or at least meets its criteria, at $1,500, that fucking amp better sound good. Does it? Okay, let's move on to the other things I'm talking about. That's how it works. If you don't know, if you've been here for years, maybe you don't know how that works. There's an expectation of sound. If this was a $300 unit, I would be going fucking berserk about how good it sounds. But you're paying $1,500. It sounds like a $1,500 amplifier. End of story. And there aren't many amps that sound like $8,000 amps, because I just reviewed an $8,000 amp, and it didn't really sound like an $8,000 amp. So, how's it sound? Perfect. Exactly what I expect out of a $1,500 amplifier. Now let's talk about when you unplug and plug it in and it drops to 0. This is the livable stuff. You're here for the livability of it. Yes, the fucking Ferrari Quattroporte blah, 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 is the greatest car ever made. But then you watch Doug DeMuro, and Doug DeMuro breaks it down like, look how fucking annoying it would be to live with this. It doesn't matter how fast something goes or how good it sounds. Is it annoying to live with every day? And I think this isn't. Except for the few little things. Like, I really love also the fact that when you're on the volume knob here, the gain button, you won't accidentally hit it, but it's right there. It's got like this perfect amount of usability. That is so loud on low gain. Holy shit. And then I put it on and I pop that out. I kind of like the fact it resets to 0. I just don't like the fact that it occasionally like jumps up to really loud when you plug it back in. When it's using, if you leave the preamp at 0, if you're not using the preamp, you don't have that problem when you plug it in and out, by the way. So, Earman, love you guys. The guy's great. If you ever meet him at a show, he is amazing. Go listen to the Earman stack at any of the audio shows. He was at Chicago. He was at SoCal. They do good work. They make really nice stuff. It's just at that perfectly expensive line where 5% of my audience could maybe afford it. And then they're like, well, there's so many other options. I'm going to keep it on my desk for a while. I think it's sold itself to me quite well. I'm probably going to take this off of it because I don't feel like I need to stream Spotify to my review desk. I've got my FLAC library here. But I'll use the DAC and the amp combo, and I'll do a couple reviews. Maybe I'll leave it on for a month. Oh, and hopefully getting some mouse pads in the merch, because I think I've showed off this mouse pad for free for like 2 years now, and I think I should probably make it my own. So yeah, wallpaper in the Horde, links to all of these things. Thank you for them sending it out. Links to my, oh, don't forget to check out In-Ear Fetish if you're looking for, oh, it's cement, I was doing grouting in my bathroom. In-Ear Fetish, look at the review of the Zens up. They're so fucking good. Anyway, Patreon, subscribe, Sarah, support this channel. Really, like legitimately. Like, please, God almighty. Get to see reviews early, participate in yard sales, where I might at some point sell these, but at the same time I might just keep them forever. I don't know. It's the bills to pay. But if you want to buy anything or sell anything, if you want to buy anything or sell anything, go to the $10 chat. Then you get to the Lifetime Swap Meet channel. But for $5, you get to see reviews early, participate in those yard sales, and access to all the sound demos, which I film on the desk, and I can use whatever music I like, as long as it is completely owned by me and operated. I made it. It's great. Shh, legal things. And for $10 a month, you get into the behind-the-scenes private Telegram chat, and then Hi-Fi Guides and the Hi-Fi Guides forums. Mostly the forums. The Hi-Fi Guides hasn't been updated in like 2 years. I think COVID broke that whole site just for my soul. But yeah, I'm good, you're good, we're good, thank you. She's good and stacked. Good night. Wait. Who doesn't like a nice, thick VU meter?